All right, we're
Um,
back. Sometimes I believe that I could go on Survivor, and then I had that time between recordings where I downed two burgers and a Diet Coke in the span of like, how long was it? Maybe 10 minutes?
no, 10 minutes is the
About 10
respawn period.
minutes.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
I
know.
think to myself, maybe I couldn't do that then.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Ruddle Me This with your host, Taylor Ruddle, aka Hollywood Rudd Rogan. We have finally reached part 3 of our long interview series with Henry Hickman talking about allegedly the greatest TV show ever made, Survivor. Hickmania is running absolutely wild at this point. We've been uploading a lot of episodes with Henry in it, so what I've done is I've released this as a bonus Wednesday episode as to not oversaturate my feed with all this delightful Survivor goodness. So, like I said, we are up to episode 3, or part 3, excuse me, of this interview with Henry Hickman about the television show Survivor. This is the final part where we cover the sort of tail end of the show leading up to the present day. We can see what they've done to kind of streamline their filming process, I guess you could say, and what's in the future for the television show of Survivor. Once again, if you're joining us from the Nerd Night talk that Henry gave, welcome along. I hope you're enjoying your stay. I think we're going to be collaborating with Nerd Night a little bit more in 2024. We're going to come up with a sort of pipeline where maybe the guests who do a talk at Nerd Night can come on and do the podcast and maybe do like a companion piece to their talk or something like that. We haven't really figured out the details yet, but I've just chatted to the delightful folks at Nerd Night and they seemed open to collaborating. So I'll watch this space and we'll see what 2024 brings. Excuse me, I can't talk this morning. So with that, let's bring one more time, for the third and final time, to the show, Henry Hickman, everybody.
And we are back for part 3 of our discussion on Survivor. Welcome back to the show, Henry.
Thanks very much for having me again. I promise I'll try and wrap it up this time.
That's all right. I think we'll get to the end of it, but much like Survivor, it's a cheap show to create, and there's a lot of content, so we're gonna just milk this for what it's worth. So where do we get up to at the end of that last episode?
I think in my listing of the eras of Survivor, we were partway through the theme era,
Yeah,
and
37 or 38, I think.
we just talked about David versus Goliath,
Yes,
which I do have another comment on.
please.
Doesn't the season name David versus Goliath instinctively tell you who you should be rooting for?
Yeah, there is a built-in protagonist in there, isn't there?
Yeah. Like if you get to the end and you're on the jury and you see a David and a Goliath at the end, who like how do
Mm.
you vote for the Goliath? It feels like sort of a flawed concept in that regard.
Who?
But I get
Oh,
what they were going for.
I was going to say you didn't want to spoil too much about these seasons, but was there much in the winners edit in the way of making the Davids appear to be sort of underdogs or anything like that?
Oh yeah, they were painted as underdogs the entire time. And the 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 Goliaths that got near the end, a lot of them were painted as, well, one in particular was painted as quite incompetent,
Huh.
and another one won a reward and got super drunk.
Huh.
And I still don't know if that was meant to be funny and relatable as most people took it, or if because like they walk into a tree and they go, bit. And I'm like, fuck, that's me. That's me for real. So I don't know if they wanted me to like him more or less because of that,
Yeah,
but
that's an interesting decision. I
it's
wonder.
phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, I would
But no,
say it's
that's
definitely maybe a relatable situation for a lot of people. But,
whether it makes you want to give them $1 million is another story.
yeah, exactly. There's a little interjection here. Are you familiar with the sketch show Mitchell and Webb at all?
Oh, I love David Mitchell and I love, is it Robert Webb? Oh,
Yeah, Robert Webb. And so you'd
yeah.
be into Peep Show as well, then, presumably?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
wonderful. Well, that's another fucking podcast we've got to do at some point.
I think
Do
my
you,
flatmate might be even, okay, my flatmate genuinely once fell asleep because all of the Peep Show episodes are on YouTube, but they're in
Oh,
one
yes.
massive video just called Peep Show Part 1, Peep Show
I'm
Part
very
2,
familiar
and
with
Peep
this
Show
video.
Part 3. And my flatmate like fell asleep watching Peep Show Part 1 and woke up and it was like halfway through Peep Show Part 2.
Yeah.
And he still claims that he watched Peep Show. I don't know if that counts. I don't know if you get to fall asleep partway through, wake up and just keep going and go, yeah, I watched it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like I haven't done that myself. So let's
With
just
that specific episode, with that specific
yeah.
video.
I know the videos you're talking about, but the reason I bring up Mitchell and Weaver is because in one episode they're talking about the we were just talking about in the first part, I think, about how much money they win from playing Survivor, and in this Mitchell and Webb sketch, they talk about it's like the highest amount of or the lowest amount of money they can pay someone that poor people think is a lot of money, and it was $100,000 because it's not.
Yeah.
You were saying,
Oh,
125,000 is not going to. It's not going to get you on the property ladder.
funnily
You're going to be
enough,
taxed like crazy off it, and people will be willing to destroy their body to get $100,000.
well, guess how much the winner of the first season of Survivor New Zealand got?
Was it
$100,000.
$100,000?
And they put it up to they put it up to 250,000 for the second season, and then they cancelled because it was clearly too expensive.
That's not even a lot of money though. Like that's
But it was $100,000. But the only caveat is that New Zealand, you don't get taxed on winnings
that's not too
for
bad.
games,
That's not too bad then.
but it's still not going to get you on the property ladder.
No, that's like having a really good year at like a decent job.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
like what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
You're going to look at it and go, well, I guess I have $100,000 now.
You're
I
going to
guess
be able to rent a really nice house for half a year.
I'll put it in my serious saver and accrue 4% interest on that for a while, I guess.
Brilliant. All right, so
Like
that
if
was a
I won
tangent.
$100,000, what would I do? I'd go on a decent holiday,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even think I'd bother investing it. It's not worth investing.
It's not worth the hassle of opening an investing account.
Yeah.
Anyway, tangents upon tangents. Continue where you left off.
David versus Goliath, a brilliant
Yeah.
season, slightly flawed concept. I still highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Some would argue that season 35 to 39 could be classified as another Dark Ages because they just went insane with the themes. And
Right.
also, from season 33 onward, you know how Survivor used to go to different locations? That was the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just see if I can list it off now. They went Borneo, Australia, Africa, Marquesas, Thailand, Amazon, Panama, Panama again, Vanuatu, Palau, Guatemala, Panama again, Cook Islands, Fiji, China, Palau again, Gabon, Brazil, Samoa, and then Samoa again, and then Nicaragua twice, and then the South Pacific. I don't quite know where that is. They did that twice.
Yeah.
And the Philippines. But then Cambodia was the last original location they went to. I'm sure someone will point out that I've missed one of them, but they went to a lot of different places.
Yeah.
From season 30, in season 32, someone almost died of heat stroke in Cambodia because they had him dig for salt and pepper as a reward. They had to dig up these balls in sand. It was a shit reward.
Yeah.
And the original playtest of the challenge, because they get people to test the challenges to make sure they don't kill people.
Yeah, yeah.
The original playtest was on a cloudy day, and the testers had markers to dig up the balls, and the producers were worried that they were too easy to find. So they took the markers away and dug them even deeper. And then it was like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So what's that? 32 Celsius, maybe even hotter.
Yeah, yeah.
In the hot sand, digging genuinely feet deep to try and find these balls.
Yeah.
And this one dude, like 3 different people had heat stroke, and one dude almost died and had to be evacuated because of it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And because of that, Survivor now only films in Fiji. Well, partially because of that. The other reason is the Fijian government gives them tax breaks to keep filming in Fiji because it increases tourism.
I was going to say, it seems like when you reach a certain point, it's just easier for them to buy an island or something, right?
Yeah.
Like when the UFC went into lockdown kind of in the pandemic, they bought an island in, I think it was like the UAE or somewhere in that part of the world. And it was called Fight Island, and it was like it allowed them to shoot shoot their fighting events there. I think they don't use it anymore, but so how long has it been in Fiji for? How many years? Sorry.
So season 33 would have been in, I want to say 2016, 2017.
So it's been there for a minute.
So the past 8 years.
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
a quarter of the show's life at this point.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, actually, no, exactly a quarter because they just passed season 44. It's been there since season 33.
Yeah, yeah. And I
And
suppose with Fiji being a relatively developed country, medical emergency is less likely.
yeah, well, medical emergencies still happen on the show.
Sorry, yeah, but they can deal with them.
They get treated. Yeah,
Yeah.
like in season. This happens in the first like 2 minutes of season 44, so I'm sorry if it spoils you, but some dude like dives headfirst into a challenge, doesn't dive low enough, smashes his head against the pole, and is evacuated like 2 hours into the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Like 2 hours into the game. Imagine like dedicating like 40 days of your life. You have to commit 40 days of your life to being on Survivor. And keen listeners will notice that I've taken 10 days off of the first number I said back in part 1. We'll get to that. You've dedicated 40 days of your life to Survivor, and you knock yourself out of the show in 2 hours.
That's heartbreaking. So he's just done. Like he's out.
He gets pulled from the game. He's out.
Wow. That sucks.
It suck.
So what was next?
At some point. So then on season 38, we've got Edge of Extinction, which they did a twist where if you get voted off, you can just sit on a different island until like the final 5 or 6, and then compete with everyone else who got voted off to come back into the game. What a terrible idea!
So they just sort of like, wait, I don't understand that.
So I voted you off.
Yeah.
You can now go sit on the edge of extinction for the next like 30 days or however long until the final 6. For some people, it was 33 days, and for some people, it was like 2 days because they were at the final 7 when they got voted off. You get to sit there, and you can quit if you want, but otherwise you just sit there. You can have no food, just vibing. Wow. And at the final 6, you get to compete in a challenge to come back into the game, and only one person wins. And so, like all at once, suddenly, 12 people were just eliminated because they lost that challenge. Someone got voted off first, sat on an island for 33 days instead of getting to go on their nice wee vacation to Thailand.
Yeah.
And got nothing for it.
Oh,
they didn't get any extra money. They didn't get any extra anything.
Yeah.
They just got a really good weight loss, I assume.
Yeah, that seems like it would accomplish that. Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then they come back like the Undertaker at the end to try and win.
Throws mankind off Hell in a Cell.
Imagine if one of those people won it. Do you think the fans would be like horrified, or do you think they'd think that's hilarious?
All right, listeners, cover your ears. The person who came back did win.
Oh, wonderful.
And he is constantly regarded as the worst winner of all time because he played for 6 days, got voted off, came back on day 36, played a phenomenal last 3 days.
I love it.
And then won.
I love it. That's the cheesiest victory ever.
It was
fantastic.
Awful.
Brilliant.
Really funny though. Really funny season.
Yeah. How mad would you be if you'd played a great game up until that point and then you just get swept by this guy at the end?
Pretty fucking mad.
No kidding.
Oh god. And arguably every single person who was there probably deserved it more than him. But then the people who were on the edge of extinction, they did get one bonus. They got to be on the jury. So the person who got voted out first was also on the jury. There were like 11 people on the jury instead of the usual 7 or so.
Oh man.
No, there were 14. My bad. There were 14 people on the jury.
Do those people that were on the edge of extinction, did they know what had happened in the game, or were they kind of basing their jury decision on like what they knew of the people before they got sent there?
So much like juries in normal Survivor, they get to sit in and watch tribal council, but they don't get to watch anything else. But imagine you've bonded with someone on the edge of extinction for however much time. Who are you going to vote for? The person who sort of validates your struggles and is a representation of what you believe you could have been if you'd been the one to win that challenge.
Yeah.
Or Gavin, who voted you off.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
well,
completely.
They're trying new things every season, and
Yep.
that's you got to
Season
applaud for
39,
it.
we got Island of the Idols. Do you
Uh-huh.
know, does Boston Rob's name ring a bell?
No, it doesn't.
Cool. Does the name Sandra ring a bell? She was on Heroes versus Villains. So was Boston Rob, though.
Yeah, I don't know why, but a Sandra from Survivor does
Yeah,
feel familiar.
they're both pretty famous for Survivor,
Yeah,
or at least in the Survivor sphere.
yeah.
And they got brought back to be mentors. And so
Huh.
every episode, people got to go to the Island of the Idols and play a little game with Sandra and Boston Rob, and maybe either win a reward or lose their vote.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was really funny though because the island had massive statues of Sandra and Boston Rob's heads. And there's this little running joke that Jeff Probst has a man crush on Boston Rob,
Right.
and everyone's like, "Yeah, he definitely has that head in his backyard," and goes
Yeah.
out and like prays to it every day or something.
I saw an episode of The Simpsons the other day where Mo he says he's going to go on holiday to Easter Island, and Homer's like, "Oh, you're going to go check out that the island with the big heads?" And Mo goes, What? Wait, what?" So I don't know what Mo thought he was going to, but the giant
I
heads just reminds me of that.
That joke is I find that joke so but I don't even know if there's more to it, but I find it so funny just the concept of someone choosing to go to Easter Island
Yeah.
but not they don't know about the giant heads. They're just going for like they
Maybe
just
he
think it sounds like a cool place.
Yeah, maybe he just heard the name and he's like, "Yeah, I like Easter. I'll
Yeah.
Like you don't see any more of him. He's just gone. Like he's going on vacation or something.
Imagine you go to Easter Island and you're like, what the fuck?
His
Why are
despair
there
of
so
just the
many
like,
giant heads?
what?
What?
And he even says beforehand he's been saving up for 12 years or something to go on this holiday. So it's like, yeah.
Oh my God.
So what came after
That's phenomenal.
the Idols one?
We get to the Super Bowl of Survivor,
Right.
a season winners at war.
Ah,
They brought back 20 people who had won Survivor before
that's pretty
and
cool.
had them play a season to see who'd be the winneriest winner. Now that season should have been the easiest slam dunk of all time.
Uh-huh.
And to be honest, I quite enjoy it because I just love seeing all of these legends, all of these, inspirations
Yeah.
in my life. But from like a purely is this season good and entertaining perspective, the answer is like it's a 6 out of 10,
Yeah.
maybe a 7 if you're like if the exact same season played out and they weren't all past winners, past legends that we all knew and loved from a whole previous season of having
Yeah.
character development,
Yeah.
then it would be like a 6 out of 10.
But I suppose people were expecting it to be like the Avengers Endgame of Survivor, where this is like the big thing that we've been building up to for 20
Yeah.
years with all our previous winners and culture of the game. And yeah.
And then we enter the sad times. Not because Survivor gets bad, but because Survivor has to take a break
Oh, really?
because of COVID.
Yeah.
So 2020 COVID pandemic happens and Survivor is off air for like the longest it's ever been. I think it
Wow.
was about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And when they come back, things have changed. Survivor
Oh,
is a new show.
really?
It's the same show, but I'll just get into it.
Yeah, go for
Survivor used to be 39 days. The
Mhm.
classic line, 39 days, 20 people, one survivor. That's my terrible
Yeah.
Jeff Probst impression.
it.
But you know what doesn't roll off the tongue as nice? 26 days, 18 people, one survivor. So now
Yeah.
you've got 26 days instead of 39 days. And I'll make that call back to why I took 10 days off of how long you need to dedicate to Survivor now. 26 days instead of 39.
Yeah.
Survivor becomes now there are some good things about the new era of Survivor. CBS in that time put in a diversity initiative
Uh-huh.
where the casts of the TV shows have to be 50% people of color.
Right.
And so that we go from having like 3 black winners to then having like 2 minority winners back to back.
Right.
We break our streak of having what was it? We had a streak of I want to say 7 male winners in a row,
Right.
eight male winners in a row, and then we get 2 female winners back to back. Like
Yeah.
it does good. It does good on the diversity side of things, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
But then the changes to having 26 days, they do everything they can to try and make it as hard as a 39-day season.
Oh, right.
And the way they do that is they overload Survivor with advantages. You no longer just have the hidden immunity idol. You now have a game where you can risk your vote to try and get 2 votes.
Oh,
You now have a knowledge is power advantage where you can ask someone if they have an advantage and they're not allowed to lie to you. And if they do have an advantage, you get it from them.
right, right.
Which, funnily enough, the knowledge is power advantage has always gotten messed up by the person with the knowledge is power telling someone about the knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And so it turns out knowledge of the knowledge is power is power.
Yeah. That's
You'd think in the name of the advantage they tell you knowledge is power, and you go and tell everyone about it, and you don't think, maybe I'm being told something by the producers. Maybe I shouldn't be telling everyone about this.
interesting. So they would almost play that as like a public, like, would they be like,
Yeah.
hey, you like, I'm going to turn this power on you unless you, you know, I don't
Well,
know.
they've tried that. It's never worked out
Yeah.
because people get crafty. But
Yeah.
so that's another advantage. There was the do or die twist where the immunity challenge happened, and you and I could choose whether we wanted to compete or not. And if we choose not to compete,
hmm
then we can't be immune. But if we choose to compete, the person who comes last has to play the fucking Monty Hall problem, where they get to choose a box and then get told whether or not you can switch. You can either switch the box or not. So you
Right,
choose a
right.
box, and if you
Yeah.
don't switch, and one box has a flame and 2 boxes have a skull,
Yeah.
and if you choose the box with the flame, you're safe, and if you choose a box with the skull, you're eliminated.
Just like that, you're done.
Just like that. But only if
Wow.
you chose to compete in the challenge and came last.
Yeah.
What the fuck were they thinking?
And they added all
Who?
this in at once.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's so hard to
They made
follow.
it. They made it so that idols, you had to say a special phrase to activate them, and there were 3 tribes because sometimes they do 3 tribes,
Yeah, yeah.
and every single tribe had to say their unique phrase at the same time to activate the idols. And
Is
so
it?
one person had to say, I think butterflies are just dead relatives saying hi.
Yeah.
Someone else had to say, someone else would hear that and go, oh, they have the idol. So I'll say my phrase, broccoli are a lot like mini trees. And the third
Right.
person goes, oh, yeah, I hear the idol phrase as well. And he goes, I'm as confused as a goat on AstroTurf.
Were those the actual phrases
What?
or were they just examples?
Yeah, those are the actual phrases.
What the heck? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Survivor got weird trying to
They've
justify
tipped it upside down, haven't they?
yeah. It's slowly getting back to normal, but they really went hard in season 41 and 42
So
to
we're on
try and make it.
44 now.
We're on 44 now.
So what was 43 like? Was that reining it in a little bit?
It was reining in a little bit, but there are some people who would say that it's still too much. And arguably it is still too much because there are still some really dumb ideas.
What
Like the
kind of
knowledge is
idea?
power still hasn't gone away. They seem to like that for some reason.
The what power, sorry?
Knowledge is power.
Oh, yeah,
Advantage.
okay. Yeah.
That's not gone away.
Have
They
you've built games before, right?
I have.
So like I used to work do a little bit of app design and stuff, and I imagine this situation of them being so into this knowledge is power, it feels like when you have a great idea for a mechanic but your players don't get how it's meant to be used,
Yeah.
and you keep thinking you can force them into using it the way you envisioned it, but it just doesn't happen. So I feel like that's what they're going for with, like, maybe they have this idea for this insane swerve that could happen with it, but the players just aren't using it like they not should, but you know what I mean, like the
Yeah.
producers want them to.
No, you're so right.
Yeah.
No, there's also, I forgot to mention, after season 40 they introduced this thing called the shot in the dark,
Uh-huh.
which is everyone gets given a dice,
Right.
a die, a 6-sided die, and if you want, you can give up your vote for that tribal council, play your shot in the dark, and you have a 1 in 6 chance of being immune.
Right. Okay.
Which I think the shot in the dark is relatively interesting. It adds a nice sort of twist to it. But
Essentially,
it's
it's
still
like if you don't want to vote for someone, you can protect yourself with
Well,
that.
you can try to protect yourself. It's
Yeah,
more of a
yeah,
Hail Mary.
yeah. I don't
It's more
dislike
like
that.
it's more like if you know you're going to be out and there's nothing you can do, you might as well go for it. You might as
Yeah,
well
yeah,
Hail Mary.
makes sense. Yeah,
And so yeah, Survivor has gone very weird. But and sometimes I think to myself, is this the same game that I fell in love with back in 2011, 2012?
they've added so much to it. It's like this.
Yeah,
We're going to come back to wrestling again, but some wrestling companies. Are you familiar with the concept of the Money in the Bank?
I'm not. Hit
So
me.
the Money in the Bank was a thing they added to wrestling where they have a ladder match, and the winner of the match is the one who climbs to the top of the ladder and grabs this briefcase down. That's called the Money in the Bank. And then
So
and
I
inside the
sorry,
brief, go ahead.
I do know about that because I played a fucking Raw versus SmackDown on the PS2,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
in the
So
story mode, that was the last match of the game.
and the thing, yeah, exactly. And the thing is, if you have this for 1 year, there's a contract inside. Supposedly, there's a contract inside this briefcase, but on many occasions, it's been knocked open and shown that it's empty. But inside this briefcase is a contract that says you can challenge any champion for any title at any time. So normally, it was created to give heels. We're getting very meta here, but it was created to
Yep,
give
yep.
heels that couldn't believably beat the champion a way to become champion without actually having to beat
Okay.
them one-on-one. So like if I remember correctly, the first usage of it was after John Cena had just completed an elimination chamber match, which is basically just a big cage match where it's 6 guys inside the cage and he's all
Yep.
battered, and then Edge as another wrestler comes out and cashes it and just hits Cena with his finisher, and then he's the champion.
Oh, wow.
And so like so many companies have tried to copy this formula, but like try to make it their own a little bit, and
Yeah.
they've just been too complicated where they've been like once a year this championship can put their title on the line to give a chance to challenge the main champion for their thing, but if they don't win then they lose the and it's like that. As you're telling me all these new Survivor rules, I'm like, oh god, it's just like wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
too confusing.
And then season 33 and 44, there's still new era, there's still 26 days, but I feel like I'm hoping that Survivor will go back to normal soon. But funnily enough, it's almost like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Mm,
Very recently in season 44, um, like they used to switch it up, sometimes 2 tribes, sometimes 3 tribes.
yeah.
But for the past 4 seasons, it's always been 3 tribes.
Huh.
And it's getting like the contestants are metagaming so hard. Like Survivor reuses challenges because it's cheap. In
Yeah.
season 44, there was a contestant who had 3D printed a bunch of puzzles before going on. And so every time there was a puzzle that he'd practiced before, he smashed it.
Ah,
And there's a split in the fan base, whether that's really cool or really fucking lame, that
interesting.
you can practice before being on Survivor because
Because
they reuse it all the time.
I guess at this point, a lot of people would be big fans of Survivor that would come on
Yeah,
and do like training, I guess, and stuff for it,
yeah,
right? That's very interesting.
yeah. And then even my favorite moment of season 44 was that for the past 3 seasons, Jeff had made the final 5 move to a new island, which he
Right.
says was to make the game even harder, but in a meta way, it was because they had to clean up the previous island to get ready for the next season. Um, and so the cast of season 44 brought all of this stuff to the final 6 tribal council, and Jeff
Yeah.
goes, "You're going to a new island," and they're like, "Look, we've got everything, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. We'll have everything anyway."
It-
And Jeff was visibly furious about that.
I've heard that that's a kind of running theme of Survivor is that Jeff gets annoyed by things that the people do. Is that correct
Yeah.
to say?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. There
Right.
was
So
a.
I've
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I've hit the end of the eras, and so let's fucking talk shit now. Let's talk about Jeff Probst getting mad,
Yeah. So, like, I
and then
remember. I don't know if it was parody or I don't know what it was, but there was something I read in a magazine years ago about a South Park sketch where Cartman was doing a rant that was a parody of a Jeff Probst rant where he was yelling at someone for not respecting his authority. Is that a thing, or was that just something South Park made up?
allegedly it happens off screen, where if you don't give Jeff good answers at tribal council, he will, like, let's say I ask you, so how does it feel being in the game? If you just go good, they're gonna cut the cameras and they're gonna lay into you. They're gonna go, don't give us one word bullshit answers.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Go give us something to work with. And
Yeah.
in season 20, Jeff's man crush got voted off. and he laid into this one person who he thought should have been voted off instead. And he was like, "So why did you guys vote off? Why did you guys vote this guy off? Why did you keep this girl around instead of keeping the big strong guy around?" And this girl just goes, "Jeff, I didn't vote for him. I voted to keep him." Like Jeff gets really he's mellowed out a bit with age. And some people think that's worse. Some people think mellow Jeff. There was this one contestant who did really poorly in a challenge. Old
Yeah.
Jeff would have dunked on them for like days straight.
Right.
New Jeff is like, isn't it so inspirational that people are like out here doing their best? I'm like, nah, I miss the old Jeff. I miss the mean Jeff Probes.
The mean Jeff. It's like Simon Cowell. He's softened in later years, it feels like, as well. The
One of them.
With Jeff, what is his like? Is he a producer of the show? Like, does he have creative input, or is he sort of like they just fly him in and out for the?
So he started as a host. He started as a host and he was a host for 13 seasons, I want to say. And at a certain point, he said, "I'm bored. I want to do something else with my life."
Yeah.
And they said, "How about we make you an executive producer?"
Uh-huh.
And he was like, "Sold." So now
Yeah.
all of this stuff that we're shit talking is almost definitely Jeff Probst's idea. And I talked about Mike White. Mike White was once having dinner with Jeff, and Jeff said, "We're bringing back this twist for a new season."
Yeah.
And Mike White just goes, "Yeah, but have you considered not doing that?" And so then Jeff didn't bring it back. Well, there's a different Jeff. Do you know Tyler Perry? He's a famous person.
Yeah. Not like super
Not personally.
Yeah.
He's also Jeff Probst's friend, and he
Right.
introduced one of my least favorite changes of Survivor.
What was that?
Contestants used to get given swimsuits because it's gross to swim in your jeans. But Tyler Perry was like, "Oh, that's that takes me out of the show. I get, pulled out of my suspension of disbelief when I see them in their swimsuits. You shouldn't give them swimsuits." And that led to the contestants only having one pair of clothes, and after a swimming challenge, they're constantly damp.
Yeah.
And it all boiled over when like a dozen or so girls were like, "Yeah, you guys gave us life-threatening UTIs by doing that."
Oh, yeah. That can't be very hygienic at all, can it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they've changed it now. They get a few sets of clothes, thankfully.
That's really interesting because I always figured, like, with who were watching it, the fact that you have these challenges and they all have like very clearly like branded, their tribes have like branding and stuff, is like, to me it was like it's not like I'm watching it thinking that they're actually just in the middle of nowhere. Like I understood to an extent that like it's a television show. So that is really bizarre.
It was really weird.
Yeah. Is the merch game with Survivor a thing? Like, do people like do they reuse tribes?
They don't reuse tribes, but I talked about them reusing challenges. It's quite often they'll take a challenge, paint it a different color, and then it's the challenge for the next season.
Yeah.
And it's got to the point that people can 3D print their challenges and test them.
Wow.
But so they reuse a bunch of challenges because they're all in Fiji now, and it's cheaper to just drag balance beam 7 out of storage than it is to create a new idea.
Yeah, that's true. So we've got about 6 minutes left in the Zoom call.
Cool.
Any closing thoughts that anything else you just really want to get out there into the world?
I want to tell a really funny story about Jeff Probst getting angry.
Please.
In season 29, someone said to him, "You were hilarious on 2.5 Men when you were naked cooking pancakes, right?" And Jeff's like, "Bacon, yeah." And this dude, Wes, who's like a country dude, is like, "Yeah, cooking bacon. That was hilarious." And you see Jeff being visibly uncomfortable because some dude is just mentioning that time he made a naked cameo on 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And then Jeff got like annoyed with him.
Yeah, Jeff was just like, "Yeah, shut up, please."
Of all the things I've done in my life, that's your favorite thing that I've done.
Yeah. And then Wes, it's so good.
Yeah.
I'll see. I mean, you guys have hopefully listened to me talk about Survivor for about an hour and a half at this point, if not longer. I've lost track of time. So hopefully it's either inspired you to give it a shot or run very fast in the other direction. Hopefully the give it a shot thing. And hopefully I will no longer have to hear the phrase, "Oh, is that show still on?"
Yeah. Well, I think I'm definitely going to go and watch. I'll have a look. I'll get you to write down and send me the seasons that you'd recommend I watch.
Heck yeah.
and I'm gonna dunk my face in and have some nostalgia. But yeah, no, I appreciate your time joining us on the podcast. It's been a good
Oh,
conversation.
thanks. Thanks
Three
very much for having me.
3 weeks of content. I'm not going to complain about it getting stretched out to that. So
Oh,
yeah,
I
well,
absolutely have had the time of my life. You know how often I get to nerd out about Survivor? Never. This has been phenomenal.
well, folks, that if you're listening and you're into Survivor as well, I'll give Henry's socials a plug at the end. So definitely get in touch, come and see him at a show, come and run up to him afterwards and tell him how much you enjoy Survivor.
Please do.
We're hoping to start off this thing at the Laugh Cellar, where I assume it will have happened by the time this goes out, but we're going to do like a sort of comics table thing where you can come up and talk to us afterwards. So if you see Henry at the comics table at the Austin Club, and I mean, I feel like my Survivor knowledge is pretty robust now based on this very intense crash course.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So
If you've enjoyed watching me, I'm a stand-up comedian sometimes, or I try to be.
yeah,
So
no, so
check me out.
definitely come and talk to us about Survivor. I'll smile and nod and pretend that I understand, and you guys will have a great time.
Oh heck yeah. Sweet.
All right,
Thanks so much for
Henry.
having me.
You're
See
very
ya.
welcome. We'll catch you next time.
And we are back. Hope you enjoyed that third and final part of that episode. Feels great to get that uploaded and out into the world again. I've had those 3 interview files sitting on my hard drive for a wee while now, so very, very satisfied to have that done and dusted. As always, if you need more Henry Hickman in your life, I know I sure do, you can find him on Facebook at Henry Hickman Comedian. And he is a heathen who does not use Instagram, so send him a DM and pester him on Facebook to get on Instagram, because that is, I don't want to say it's the way of the future. It's certainly the way of the sort of 25 plus millennial or zillennial audience, which is kind of what we fall into. So yeah, pester Henry to get on Instagram. As always, I am on all the social media platforms except for Twitter at Taylor Ruddle Comedy. And as always, don't forget to check Can Do Comedy on Facebook to see what events we have coming up. I don't think we have anything too spectacular coming up in the near future, just the usual Tuesday night quiz at Brady's Bar and Bistro, Wednesday night quiz at Moi Moi, Thursday night, if it's not the last Thursday of the month, we are at the Laugh Cellar at Austin Club, and then on the last Thursday of the month, we are at Sprig and Fern Merivale. And this month's show is actually going to be an interesting one. We're going to do a new material night. We're going to do a sort of Christmas-themed, bringing out some gifts, bring out some new jokes kind of theme. I've got a Christmas ensemble that I wore to a Beats by Bingo event that I'll probably be dusting off and bringing out for that. Henry and I are actually working on a little bit of a secret project together. We are hoping to put on a show that's going to be on Tuesday nights at the Austin Club in 2024. I don't want to say too much about it because we're still ironing out the details, but if you were one of the people that came out to my pop culture quiz at Beepalopolis in the first kind of half of 2023, this kind of show I think is going to be right up your alley. Again, don't want to release too many details about it because it might change. The idea is going to be very pop culture heavy. There's going to be audience interaction, and it's going to be like a fun, it's not so much a show, maybe more like a little social gathering, like a little club, where the audience members can vote on things, and the audience members can suggest characters and locations, and maybe it might be a sort of Mad Lib style storytelling. We're not really too I'm just going to stop talking. We don't know what the show is going to be yet, but it's going to be pop culture focused, and it's going to be featuring Henry and myself and using a bit of technology that the audience can participate in. That's probably the best elevator pitch I can give you. So keep your eye out on that. Follow us on Can Do Comedy on Facebook, as we'll be announcing it on there once we kind of get the I's crossed and the T's dotted. So once again, thank you so much for listening. It's really good to see the numbers of the podcast are actually going up. We're getting pretty much double the amount of downloads that we used to get when I was kind of starting out. That's not like we were getting heaps. That's kind of a benchmark for how the podcast has grown since we've started doing it. I'm just super appreciative of everybody that tunes in every week. I really want to make this into kind of my main project, I guess you could say, especially in 2024. As always, if you want to help the show, give me a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever your player is. Help me climb up the rankings a little bit and get the podcast recommended to more people in their feeds. I'd really, really appreciate that. All right, well, that's enough from me. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next week. Ruddler out.